Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums alongside in the co-captain's chair all the way from Scotland, the always engaging Mr. Steven Reid. What's happening, my friend? How are you?
I'm very well indeed, Peter. How's yourself? Are you good?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about Frost because, when we first discussed this, I don't know, 6 months ago, I didn't own any Frost albums. And our conversation was like, well, you know what? There is a new Frost release coming out on Inside Out Records. So I said to Steven, I said, you know what? I will get that. And because obviously we're going to get the promo anyway, and I will go buy it, and I'm going to go investigate the back catalog. It's only 4 albums, and let's get back in a couple months, and we'll do a ranking show. So here we are, a couple months later. I think I have a good handle on the catalog. However, and we were just talking about this off camera, I went to go order the previous 3 albums, and they're all out of print. I'm like, out of print? This band has only been around for what, a decade and a half, if that? I'm like, how is that possible? So I found out that Inside Out put out this box set that contains like the first 3 studio albums and the couple live albums and the EPs and all that kind of stuff all in one box set. I'm like, all right, let me just order that. It wasn't that expensive. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't that expensive. So I looked at it online. I'm like, that looks pretty nice. Whatever, I'll get it. You know all these box sets we get, right? We always hold up these cool looking box sets and whatever. So I get it in the mail and I'm like, that looks like an LP box or something. And I get this. So it's called 13 Winters, and it's basically like an LP. And it's like a book, with lyrics, not much else, a little bit of story. And then the CDs come in this, obviously you can tell that I have my CDs out in jewel cases because I've been listening to them all over creation. And while for some this might be kind of cool, but as someone who doesn't own LPs and just has CDs, where do I put this? I can't take this in the car with me because it's too freaking big. It doesn't sit on any of my shelves nicely. I guess I could put it in with my books, but even that, it's like really wide. And I don't have anything else like this. So I'm like, and then as soon as literally not even like 2 days after I get this in the mail, Inside Out announces the reissue campaign. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So like a couple of guys like Rand from the other in the Prog Seat show is like, well, why don't you just send it back? Why don't you get a refund? And I'm like, well, I've already opened it. I've already had, because I had it for like almost a month before I even like really listened to it. And I'm like, I might as well just keep it now. But now I'm looking at those great new reissues and I'm like, I might have to get those too.
Well, I have a question for you then, Peter, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. So do you have no vinyl? None at all?
I have like maybe 10.
Wow.
They're in my closet. Yeah, I got rid of all my vinyl like 30 years ago.
Now that breaks my heart.
I know. Well,
my heart. I mean, I know that shipping's expensive, but do you know, I'd have taken it all. I'd have taken all the vinyl, okay? Every last one of them. Now, what I am intrigued by, because this is the first time that I've seen inside that box, okay? So anyone that watched in the Prog Seat this week, they will have seen, and I'll have looked about this size, okay? But behind me, unlike my teenage posters behind me, they'll have seen the boxes that I've got like this. So I've got lots of them by Stephen Wilson, The Pineapple Thief, Porcupine Tree. They tend to be the bands that use this format quite a lot. It is an inside-out thing. I think they're beautiful and they're lovely and they're gorgeous and they're lush. And yet they sit in my living room or lounge or whatever you want to call it, away from everything else, because same as you, my CD shelves are all this size.
Yeah,
so they don't fit. So they feel a bit separated from everything else that I've got, but I can't help myself because, well, 2 things. One, they are gorgeous.
I will agree with you. They are.
Three things. 3. I'm going to 3, and I'll stop it at 3. So 4 things. No, 3 things. Okay, they're beautiful and they're gorgeous. Okay, they tend to be limited. I'm a sucker, right? Okay, and there tends to be lots more on them than there is on everything else. So I've got, okay, and let's not give too much away, I've got the 4 discs, right? So I'll just do that so nobody quite picks up the order of sitting there in. Okay, I've got the 4 discs, bought them when they came out. You've got lots more than 4 discs there.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I've got, I think, 6 discs, 7 discs maybe between the, 7 between these 4 albums, because I've got instrumental versions, one does have a DVD. I think you've got music that I don't.
So I'll tell you what I have.
Music in a physical format that I don't.
So this is what this has. Disc 1, Million Town remastered.
Yep.
Disc 2, Experiments in Mass Appeal, remixed and remastered. Disc 3, Falling Satellites, remastered. Disc 4, Falling Satellites Instrumentals, remastered. Disc 5, Falling Satellite Live, recorded November 24th, 2017. Disc 6, Others, the EP. Disc 7, The Philadelphia Experiment. That is another, not even sure what
That's
that
a
is.
live one.
Yeah, live. And then, and I haven't even listened to that yet. Disc 8, This and That, B-Sides and Rarities.
Okay,
So yeah, this is cool because there's a lot of good stuff. My problem is like, what I would have liked better here is I agree with it. It's beautiful, but you know, when I want to take the CDs out with me, it's like, you know, here you have, it's just the disc and like no booklet, no real information. And I don't know. I guess I'm so used to this, right? That this is very cumbersome to me. But what's cool about it is I got everything now. I have everything. So that is cool.
Because you've got the B-sides of the this and that, whatever that is. I probably don't have all of that.
Right.
And the Others EP, if I remember correctly, was only released in digital format when it first came out. That's the only physical format there is of that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And that, to me, was enough to make me think about buying it, even though I've got all the albums. And I still might, because now that I hear that, I don't have the live album that's on there. I don't have the this and that, and I don't have the EP. I'm nearly halfway there. I mean, it's already telling me I need it.
I would say get it if you can, then, because, you know, it's limited edition. I don't know how many are left, so it's probably worth
it. The main issue I have with these big boxes, okay, and some of the fancier, smaller boxes, some of the Marillion releases and things like that, is that they tend to really compromise on how they actually house the discs in them. So these little plastic central inserts that you've got in that set there, that I've got in some of the ones through in the other room there, they tend to not grip the CD very well, which is not a great thing. There's one of my Stephen Wilson ones that I open and immediately thunk as a CD falls down every time I open it. Which admittedly is better than his newest album, The Future Bites, because those discs are under everything. You have to lift out 2 posters, a polythene bag that's got various bits of nonsense in it, not nonsense, a mirror, and so on until you get to the bottom, and then you can finally take the disc out. So I've ended up taking out the main album and putting that in just a blank Joe case, and it sits with all my CDs for exactly the reason that you're talking about, because by the time that I take that box out and actually get to the CD, I could have listened to something else.
Yeah.
Do you know? So it's great, and I love them. And some of the Marillion ones have got foam inserts where the CDs go on. Okay, and I live in Scotland. It's been warm here the last few weeks. Okay, so we're all dying because it's, you know, above like 10 degrees. So, but the foam has slipped over the years. My Marillion Marbles album, the foam has slipped. So the CDs have kind of done this in the box, you know? And every time you open them, instead of being proudly in the center of that circle, they're now at the bottom, held by the bit of cardboard. And I dutifully push them all back up every single time, fully in the knowledge that it's going to be back there again when I come back to it. But I can't help myself. I mean, I could store them flat, but you don't store CDs flat for a variety of reasons.
No. I don't know. For me, it's like, I guess I've been spoiled by these like recent Jethro Tull box sets, right? Well, been doing. You know, for me, as kind of nice looking as this is, and it's unique, I almost, because it's got 8 discs, right? So I'm almost like, wouldn't it have been cooler if this was housed in one of those, you know, box sets like the, you know, I mean, I'll just grab one here. I just think that putting it in something like this might have made a little more sense, because now you can take all the book material, like all the written stuff, and, you know, you got your book, you know, and then you have the places to put the CDs.
I agree, because these are lovely, but you're not telling me you would take that in the car. You've still got the same issue with taking the discs out and housing them in something, do you not?
True, but this is a little easier to just put on my front seat. You know what I'm saying? I agree with you there. Box sets are not car ready for the most part.
No, I mean, to be fair, I think that maybe shows that you and I are living thoroughly in about 1970. Admittedly, CDs are not, I mean, I'm not taking cassettes out to the car now, but you and I are probably in the last small amount of people are actually putting a physical thing in the slot.
We're dinosaurs, man. Come on, let's be real. We're dinosaurs. And you know what?
Progosaurs.
I'm very proud of that. That's quite all right.
And so am I. I'm telling you, I do it too. So
So everybody's probably watching. It's like, when are these two fools going to fucking get to the ranking already? Because
What are we doing?
we're bitching about a friggin' box set, man. That's like, that's what I am anyway. So so we are going to rank the albums of Frost. So we have 4 albums. Let's see. The first album was 2006. So these guys have been around about 15 years. I will say this is fun stuff for anybody watching that's not familiar with Frost. Interesting. It's progressive rock, but it's very modern sounding. This is not one of those bands that kind of harks on the 70s at all, although you hear little glimpses of Genesis from time to time or something, but that's very negligible. It's more, this is, I don't know. It's prog, yes, but there's elements of techno and dubstep, and there's some metallic riffing and some tasty solos, great vocals, lots of synths and very modern sounding keyboards. Definitely, if you like the Pineapple Tree, Pineapple Thief, and Porcupine Tree. I love how I put them both together there.
Two bands, why not? Yeah, have a collab.
Right? If you like those two bands, they don't sound like them really, but I think you get my point that they're kind of that more modern style of progressive rock. There's some dance rhythms. There's some definitely some, like I said, some heavy metal guitars at times, but it's prog, but it's modern prog in a big way. I don't know any other way to describe it. So we've got 4 studio albums, full-length studio albums, and we're finally going to get to it now. I'll have Stephen kick us off with his number 4.
Okay, so number 4 for me is album number 2, okay? And you can kind of see it's not just black. Can you see the reflection of the frost mark or the asterisk or whatever you want, catching it in the light there? It is really quite cool, actually. And they use that logo really well. There you go, it's on the discs on, there we go, the CD and DVD that's in this one. So this was album number 2. This is 2008. It's still got the core of the band that were on the debut. For anyone that doesn't know, Jem Godfrey is the main guy in the band. He's the main songwriter. It kind of all revolves around him. Most of the other guys are in other bands. What Jem Godfrey does is he is a writer and producer. So his biggest hit, because he's had hits, was a single he wrote for Atomic Kitten, which was a ginormous selling hit. He wrote a song for a guy called Shane Ward, I think, who won some reality show nonsense over here in the UK, and I think is up there with one of the fastest selling singles of all time. He's won all manner of awards, Ivor Novello awards, various things like that. He's worked with Gary Barlow. And most of this has worked alongside Frost. Some of it happened before Frost, so people were really, really skeptical about what this band was going to be. But then he brought in people like John Mitchell, who we all know from Arena and It Bites and a variety of other different things. He brought in John Jowett, who we all know from Arena again, but IQ, Jadis, Arc. He brought in Andy Edwards on drums. That's IQ. He's been in Magenta since then. And a guy called John Boyle, or Boyles, on guitar, who has done other little bits and bobs, but he's the least famous. They were billed as a supergroup when they started. So Boyles had gone by album number 2. Sorry, Peter, I am getting there, honestly. And in his place was a guy called Declan Burke, who's been in Darwin's Radio. And he is also a solo artist in his own right, who's created some really, really interesting albums, and some that didn't quite hit the mark in the same way for me personally anyway, but he's a really talented guy, plays guitar, sings really well. And interestingly, he is the main singer on album number 2, and it's the only album that he appears on. Jem Godfrey sings at times, John Mitchell sings at times. John Mitchell's still in the band at this stage, but he doesn't really sing. I wonder how involved he really was with this album, because it kind of lacks his touch in many ways. None of this sounds like Arena or It Bites or Lonely Robot or anything like that. However, there's a Mitchellism about some of the phrasings and some of the guitar work that you would expect, because he's a really talented guy in his own right, and he brings him to everything that he does. So Godfrey's the main man, and he's produced this album. I think that's maybe one of its, I mean, he produces all the albums, but it's maybe one of this one's, not downfalls, because all 4 albums are really strong, really good. This out of their catalogue is maybe harder, it's maybe edgier, and maybe a move away from an album that, in my opinion, the debut maybe shouted very loudly, "I'm a prog musician," in a way that a guy with his background wouldn't have been expected to. So yeah, really good album. You've got probably the strongest point for me. He says holding up this black thing that nobody can really. Yeah, oh, 100%. There you go. There you are. It is Dear Dead Days, which has great movement and energy to it. Experiments in Mass Appeal. The title track is really good. A bit smoother, a bit mellower. Wonderland, which is 15 minutes long. That's starts with real intent. There's a real passion about that song, which kind of maybe doesn't see its way through all the way through. It feels a little bit like two songs maybe made into an epic in certain ways. And Saline is another one of my favourites. But this is really good. As Peter says, we're in the realms of modern prog, and it's pleasantly difficult to actually tell you who they sound like. Yes, you can hear a little bit of Yes, or you can hear a little bit of Genesis, or you can hear some of those 70s inflections. They're not inspirations here, I wouldn't say. It's an inflection. It's a kind of, without those things, this music wouldn't exist. However, they don't sound like those things. And I quite like the fact that they sound a bit like Frost, really, which is really quite good. And that's quite rare. So anyway, enough from me. That's Experiments in Mass Appeal. Number 4.
So I've often wondered what the significance of the asterisk is. Is that meant to be like a frosty snowflake falling down?
I think so. I don't know if it's an asterisk. Supposedly he picked the name because he saw it on the weather. I can't remember what they were going to call it, but something, it was really naff. By his own, estimations, it was beyond naff.
Yeah.
And he was just sitting watching the TV one night, and the weather came on, and as happens in the UK, it came up with Frost on the chart, and he went, that's the name. That's really cool. And it is quite a cool name. And the asterisk has been there from the start, and it's there most of the time when you read their name.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, even if I type their name, I put it in, it feels a bit pointless, but I quite like it at the same time.
It's got to be there, right? I'm going to ask Andy Edwards next time I talk to him. Maybe he has the reasoning for it. But yeah, it is kind of cool. It gives them an identity, which I kind of like. So I agree with you on this one. Experiments in Mass Appeal. Of course, here. Sans Digipack or whatever from the box set. Yeah, I mean, all these albums are they're very solid to pretty great, I would think. You mentioned, a lot of stuff here that I probably would have said as well. I like the title track is really good. There you go. Mixes some acoustic textures with that explosive kind of modern prog thing that they do from time to time. Pocket Sun. I'm not much of a techno or dubstep guy, but I like when these guys use those elements occasionally, because it's just like kind of like all of a sudden the song is going one way, then all of a sudden you hear, and then it drops off, and it's like, all right, where did that come from, right? So Pocket Sun's got a little bit of that, and you hear a lot of that in a lot of their albums. You mentioned Saline, beautiful song, acoustic guitar, piano. Toys is really good quirky upbeat rocker. Falling Down, really memorable. Dear Dead Days, probably the best song on the album. Just this nonstop assault of synths and guitars. Wonderland, big, epic, and moody. Yeah, it does kind of sound like a couple different tracks put together, but I still think it's great. And Welcome to Nowhere is really good too. Very solid album. Clearly for me, my least favorite, but that does not mean it's bad. It's a very good album, and it's got to go somewhere, right? So it just happens to be at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a nice position of only having 4 albums to rank, so they're all good. Do you know? I mean, there isn't a weak spot here. If that was the only album, you would be going, that Frost were a great band. Do you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that it is both of our number 4, it just shows the strength of what else is there. Yeah. Do you know, more than anything else. So number 3 for me. We jump forward 8 years, but this is still just the next album. This is album number 3. And actually looking at this, I think there is no frost mark or asterisk, but instead we have a kind of maze that isn't a maze. It's no beginning, no end. This is Falling Satellites. Okay, this is 2016. By this stage, the band is still Godfrey and Mitchell. We've also got Nathan King on bass, who was in, I believe, Level 42.
Yeah,
not the band on my radar very much, to be fair, but there's an awful lot of that crossover from kind of 80s pop and kind of electronic stuff into the modern prog scene, which is quite interesting. A few of these guys that you would kind of think will have had no, credentials really, actually turn out to be some phenomenal musicians. And it's the same with King. He really adds quite a lot to the band, I think. And you've also got Craig Blondell on drums, who is really kind of ubiquitous with the prog scene, but maybe best known for his work by Stephen Wilson in recent years as well. He's on drums on this, and his drums are very high in the mix as well, which, as you say, is a theme. They do use those beats in a way that does kind of throw a little bit of kind of dance and dub and techno in there in people's comments, but in no way would you, think that that's what this album is. This is another prog album more than anything else. You've also got Joe Satriani on here. He guests on Closer to the Sun, is where he guests on a little guitar solo on there from an absolute legend, because Godfrey works with these guys as well. He's done some live work with Joe and various things like that too. So that's the sort of company that he's keeping. And I think that this does a really good job actually of combining maybe the slightly more aggressive tone of Experiments in Mass Appeal to the really overtly prog bent of Million Town, which was the band's debut. Yeah. It kind of fits a middle ground. And I say 8 years down the line, the band had basically been out of existence more than it's been in existence in its 15 years time, because they haven't just kind of gone away and done their own things. They have kind of basically said, I don't think we'll come back to this, a couple of times, and then thankfully they appear to be a band again now that are actually doing things and planning things, and quite a lot of releases in recent times, 2 albums, an EP, and that collection that you've showed all your discs are from. So the Race Against the Dying of the Light Blues in 7/8. Now, I mean, if that's not a prog title, what is? Yeah. Which is a song about staring death in the face as you lose someone you love. And I'm quoting my own review there, so a bit sycophantic, but there you go. Because I couldn't think of better words to use than that, because that's what it is. But it's the music actually describes that theme very well. I think numbers, which I think they don't sound like anyone, but there is an element, I think, of latter-day King Crimson in some of what Frost do. That kind of Bellew kind of era where it was a bit quirky and angular, and you didn't, as you say, there's little breaks that kind of think, well, the song was going this way, we'll make this massive noise and we'll go that way. And there's an element of that in here, but I think Numbers is a bit like that, linked with the Police. There's not a reggae feel, but there's that kind of, or something like that that's in there too. Yeah, nothing like that. Don't be frightened. Nothing like that. Lights Out, which has a guest vocal from Tori Beaumont, who I know nothing about whatsoever, but she's excellent. And it's a really beautiful, slow number. And I think in ways you can hear Godfrey's kind of pop sensibilities in points in this album. They're very accessible, whilst being remarkably technical in points as well. And I think that some people maybe find them just a little bit too eclectic or eccentric. I don't quite know which, but it works for me. So that number 3, but it's a really good album. This is Falling Satellites, 2016.
Yeah, more about that a little later. I mean, the top 3 are really hard to rank for me, because I think they're all 3 are very different and all 3 very enjoyable. This might upset some people, but I'm going to go with Million Town at number 3. It's great. It's absolutely great. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of new to this band, so I'm you obviously have had many years with these albums. I've had 6 months, so this is fantastic. It is. It kind of pained me to put it at number 3. This is their debut. There's some terrific stuff on it. This is without a doubt their most obvious prog rock album, without a doubt. All the other albums dabble in other things, but I think this is okay. This is our first album. They were on Inside Out here, right? Inside Out, and we got to be a prog band, right? And then after they released this, they said, all right, now we can do the other things we want to do. But man, I mean, just grand, majestic, 2000s era prog rock. Hyperventilate is a terrific instrumental. Know Me, Know You is good, hard-hitting modern prog. Snowman is nice and quirky. It's kind of poppy. There's some good pop on this album too. The Other Me has got grooves to die for. Andy Edwards' drumming on this album is quite good, and Mitchell's guitar soloing is excellent. I mean, Black Light Machine, great guitar soloing on that. And then you got the big 26-minute title track to finish out the album, which mixes like classic symphonic prog with the more modern influences. Great vocals on the whole album. I think if I were to compare this to anything, and again, it's not like they sound like it, but if folks like the last like 5, 6, or 7 albums from Spock's Beard, the Neil Morseless era, you will love this, because I think this kind of falls in line with that. It's got the pop sheen, but it's definitely symphonic prog. It's very challenging musically. This is without a doubt the most different album out of the three. And if you really want to hear these guys, really do the full-on prog thing with that little touch of pop there, this is the one to start with. But they're all really good. They're all really good.
It's interesting, Peter, because I've said they don't sound like anyone, but when you built up there to who that was about, you say you can compare it to. I knew you were going to say Spock's Beard, and I knew you were going to say the era that they're in now, and I absolutely agree. I think if that's because I'm a bigger fan of that era of Spock's Beard. Let's not go into that. That's for a different show. But that's the one that really connects with me, or the era that connects with me, because it's quite a long era now, that has to be said. And yeah, I can absolutely understand that connection that you make about maybe the construction of the music, as opposed to I don't think you put on a Frost album and think it's Spock's Beard.
Oh, no.
Spock's Beard album and think it's Frost. But I think that in certain ways they take elements in the same way and join them in the same way. And they're not frightened to introduce different elements and maybe take you off guard a little bit at times and kind of say, well, do you know what, you didn't expect this on this album, but you're either going to go with it or you're not. I think Frost are very much, do you know what, if you don't like us, we're not that bothered. This is the music we want to make, so we're going to go make it. And I really like that. I like that in any band, that has to be said, but when it works as well as it does here, I really like it too. So I've had sleepless nights over this, okay, because in recent times, the two albums that are left for me, one I have said is arguably their defining statement, and the other one I've put in our prog rock primer, UK prog rock primer. I mean, that's because they're not the same album. So that kind of really put me in a quandary of, so I really need to go and give them both an awful lot of time and thought. And I have shocked myself by putting Milliontown in at number 2. Now, I know that now nobody below us is going to agree, because this is the Frost album. So, this was, as you say, it's the debut. For many, it's the classic lineup. It's the prog fest of their catalogue. As I said earlier, it's definitely, I think it feels like someone putting their foot down and going, you think I'm a pop writer? This is what I'm all about, but I'll make lots of money while I do, and why not? Why shouldn't he? Because he's very good at that too, obviously. Not my style of music, but people buy them by the bucket load, so he's clearly doing something right. And if you do read the list of collaborators that he's worked with, I mean, the guy's a go-to guy in that scene, So to be able to collate an album of this technicality, this complexity, and make it still accessible. And there are areas that you can sing along with. There are choruses here, and yes, there's, as you said, there are 26 minute, not 26 song, 26 minute epic that's 6 parts in it and various things like that. This is a prog album. This was a prog statement. I don't know if it's got a prog cover or not. It's a bit odd. So yeah, it's prog enough, I suppose.
I think so.
Some telephone box. Why not? But it really was, what a tremendous opening statement this was from the band. And Godfrey's keys, and I think it's no accident, are to me the key element on this album. Mitchell's phenomenal. His guitar playing is fantastic. But this was an album very much, I think, Godfrey had envisaged, and this was what it was going to be. And it just has a real flow about it. Hyperventilate that opens the album is just a blast in the face. There's no compromise there. We can play and we're going to show you. But then there's things like Snowman, which is really accessible and clever and quirky. And there's a little bit of pop in there, but in the way that I think probably most new prog does these days. I think really the last 10, 15 years, I think prog is kind of going, actually it's okay if you want to sing and dance to what we do for a couple of minutes. Not the whole album, no. A couple of minutes and that'll do. Stop enjoying yourself, listen to the prog. But yeah, so this is Milliontown. It's the debut, 2006. I would guess that most people in the comments are going to go, oh, these guys know nothing. This is their best album. This is where you should start. I'd maybe say it's still where you should start.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, will I tell you this is their best album? Yeah, I might well do, because hair's breadth between this and what I put at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I might tell you tomorrow that's their best one. It's my favorite as well. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of a newbie to this band, so I may change my mind completely on this ranking 12 months from now, and that's to be expected, right? In fact, like, I almost went with my number 1 what I ultimately decided was my number 2, and that's the brand new one, which, quite frankly, I have just a little more history with than the other ones, because I bought the rest of the catalog after I had really digested this one. I mean, this, I had to really like stop myself from this being number 1. It's that damn good. This is a really enjoyable, engaging album. And you know what I like about these albums too, Stephen? They're not too long.
Yeah.
Just as long as they need to be. And it's almost like, when it ends, you're like, oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's play it again. Because it's like, it's not like you're sitting through, 65, 70 minutes worth of stuff and you're feeling fatigue a little bit. This is just really just good, enjoyable, compact, modern progressive rock. But, the first song, the title track, this is Day and Age, by the way, in case everybody's wondering what the hell I'm talking about here. This is the brand new 2021 release. The title track is so good. Is so good. I mean, it's just like, it's got these majestic keyboards and, and the vocals are amazing. Just a killer song. Then you got Terrestrial, which is like big and boisterous and just so infectious. The Boy Who Stood Still is another great one. It mixes like modern prog with, again, that little bit of techno and dubstep in there. Very, very modern sounding, which is really cool. Island Life is good and upbeat. You got Skywards. You got Kill the Orchestra, which is like the mini epic on this album. Every album's got like a, couple lengthy tracks. This is this one, which is big riffs. Love the synthesizers on it. I mean, he's a really good player. And then you got Repeat to Fade, which has got tons of groove. You know what it is? I was sitting there this morning when I was kind of tidying up my list and putting down some extra notes. This album, when I listen to it over and over and over again, I keep thinking that this is the album that Peter Gabriel should have made in the 80s or in the early 90s.
Wow, yeah, right, okay, yeah.
Because I think the vocals on this album have a little bit of that Peter Gabriel-ism to it a little bit.
Yeah.
But more importantly, this is just, because it's so not genre specific, and it incorporates all these different musical styles, and it's very modern, which is what Peter Gabriel was going into in the 80s. He's like, I'm going to move away from that 70s stuff I was doing with Genesis. I got it. So that's why all of a sudden, he's incorporating what became known as world music and all these type of things. That's kind of, in a weirdly different way, that's kind of what I get from this album. And I'm almost like thinking, if this album had the Peter Gabriel name on it, this would sell 10 million copies.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think if Jem Godfrey had been in a massive name band before he came into Frost, in the way that Gabriel was, he was a household name in a band that had hits, but they weren't a hits band. They weren't a singles band, not in the way they became anyway. And if Godfrey had had that exposure, I think you could see hits coming off his albums.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think they could have been a chart-friendly band. One of those bands that you think, why do the masses get these experiments and mass appeal? Why do the masses get this when actually it's complex prog? But they just happen to have that way in, and they happen to have that way in. Frost have that way in. I think that's a really good comparison to make. I think it really, that possibly more than anything else explains the ethos about what they try and do at certain points in this catalogue. And same again, you're not going to confuse an album for one of Peter Gabriel's albums, but the ethos is definitely a similar one in that sense. And to be fair, I think as he grows older, as we all do, Mitchell's vocals do lend a Gabriel-ism to quite a lot of what he does. Not an intentional one. There's just that kind of lived-in, raspy kind of feel to them. And it does kind of bring in a little bit of gravitas in a way to some really cool melodies and great ideas, I think, as well. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I urge anybody watching who has not heard this band, has not heard Day and Age, the new album, go and listen to the title track of the new album, Day and Age. I guarantee you will totally get hooked into that. It's got so much mass appeal, yet it's just challenging enough to keep all of us progress very, very happy. I don't know, really, really great album. Yeah, great album.
It's my number one. It's great enough to be my number one. There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. And there is an Englishness about them in that kind of traditional prog sense. For example, my copy comes with a nice card here, which I don't know if you can read that for, if it's not very clear. Enjoy yourselves, you scum. Now that is actually one of the opening lines, which is narrated by a child's voice right at the very start of the album. And it says an awful lot. it's funny and it's quirky, but it's a comment on the current world and the head in the sand kind of ethos that a lot of people feel that we're in at the moment, you know, and they do it without shoving it down your throat. This is not a political album, but it is a political album. They're not commenting on what you should be doing, but they're commenting on what they think they should be doing. I think it's quite clever, but I do also like the fact that this card is signed. Okay, so it came signed. And Nathan has been kind enough on my one to actually write underneath whoever's signature this is, what the fuck. So have fun with it while you can, you know? So yeah, I do like the fact that, and there are other ones that I've seen shared on social media that have got pictures and drawings, and they've had fun with these. And these cards are not just, I don't know how many they did, but they were not just, oh, let's get them all done, because I can't be bothered with that. They have actually had a little bit of fun with them, and they've enjoyed the process, which makes it just that little bit more special. You know, it would be nice if it fitted in here, but it doesn't, it pokes out a little bit. But you can't have everything in life, do you know? And some cool art. This is definitely prog art that's going on here, do you know? Quite nice enigmatic band pictures and various things. Nice pack, this one. You also get the album in this version in instrumental mode. I'm not always a massive fan of that, but it does seem to work here, actually. I'm going to listen to it a lot. Well, not when the main album itself is so good, is the honest answer to that. But I know from comments that others have made below some of the videos that lots of people do get lots of fun from those discs. So if you like that sort of thing, and you can still get this one, I would advise you get this, because instrumentally there's not much to touch them, you know. And on this album, so Craig Blundell is now gone. He's way too busy, you know, being the prog master drummer that he's become. So you've got Pat Mastelotto on this album, you've got Kaz Rodriguez on this album, and you've got Darby Todd, who is a drummer I knew nothing about really until he appeared on this album, and now I seem to pick his name up in a whole load of different places, and he's an in-demand kind of guy. And what I would say is that the 4 albums that this band have put out have got excellent drummers on them. This one has 3. And man, do they give them the room to breathe, you know? And I suppose, where's the point in going out and getting 3 excellent drummers and then going, we want you to do, you know, let's cover Thunderstruck. I love Thunderstruck, by the way. Let's not diss that. And the drum beat is phenomenal. I'm being very unkind, and I love Chris Slade. Love the guy. Love him, love him, love him. But you understand what I mean, you know? And some of the drumming on this album is just absolutely outstanding. I mean, Mastelotto on Repeat to Fade. Oh, I can't even keep up listening to it. Never mind trying to get the limbs to move like that. Do you know, it's just phenomenal. And that at the end of that song, the song shouts, enjoy yourself. And it doesn't mean have a great time. It's about that, do you know, as long as you're plugged in and getting your feed, then it doesn't really matter what's happening out there. The message is actually, it really should matter what's out there. Let's not get too political, but there's intelligent lyrics at play here, and lots of fun too, do you know? So great album. The Boy Who Stood Still, which I really like, is narrated by Jason Isaacs. And anyone who in the UK listens to Wittertainment with Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo, who are on 5 Live doing a film review show, know that you then have to say hello to Jason Isaacs. And that actually got Frost a mention on that show, because Jason Isaacs has been in everything from The Death of Stalin to Harry Potter to millions of films. He's a really respected actor. He narrates this song in just a spoken tone, does a brilliant job of it. So they got a mention on that show because of that, and basically were told that it was a whole load of noise. To which the band themselves on social media have reacted very positively. They think that's a thorough endorsement and are happy with any publicity at all.
Any press is good press,
right? Anyone that listens to that show will know that it's very tongue-in-cheek. You know, the guys they take their films seriously. They don't take very much else very seriously, in a very good way. So the fact that we're willing to mention it is a very good thing. That's an endorsement in itself. So hopefully that gets them a bit more notice, and maybe a little bit of more sales and maybe mainstream acceptance. But as an album, Day and Age is fantastic. I love Terrestrial. Another one where the drumming is intense. That's with Darby Todd that's on that one. Waiting for the Live, which is, it's more accessible maybe. It's a beautiful little song. I just don't think there's a weak moment on it. I really surprised myself when I heard it first, because I did kind of think the Million Town would always be the Frost album for me, as well as it will be for many, I'm sure. And it would appear that it's not anymore. In this day and age would appear to be my favourite Frost album. What it is today, Maybe tomorrow it won't be, but
Might
that'll do.
change your
That's a
mind,
good
right?
thing.
You never know. You never know. All right, so somewhat surprisingly, again, I didn't expect this to happen, but my favorite for now Frost album is actually Falling Satellites. Yeah. I'd rather you show yours because this is not really but not much better, I guess, right? It's a pretty plain, but there you go. This is their third album. It's a concept album, basically. This is Jem basically putting together a story of folks who are reaching middle age who should just learn to enjoy life while you still have it and while you still can, because you never know what tomorrow may bring. So this is kind of, he lists this as his like midlife crisis concept album, so to speak. Just great stuff. A lot of really engaging songs. Numbers is absolutely terrific. I mean, just upbeat, and just the melodies are so great. Tower Block is just, I mean, so good. Signs, so memorable. Love all the synths and the guitars and that. I mean, this is a really good album for John Mitchell, I think, because not only is his guitar work excellent throughout, vocally, I think he sounds really, really strong on this album. Heartstrings, absolutely, absolutely killer. Probably my favorite song in the entire catalog. I love Heartstrings.
I don't think I can give you a favorite song, but it's a great song, Peter.
I mean, man, you gotta love those heavy guitars and synths at the beginning and throughout the song. It's just like, it just pulls you right in. Just love it. Closer to the Sun is this grating kind of like dreamy pop prog song. Excellent, nice guitar solo on that too. The Rage Against the Sting of the Light Blues and 7/8, also good, raucous, more rockin' song. Nice Day for It, great instrumental. Lantern is emotional and just lovely. And then British Wintertime is just such a gorgeous piece of music. I don't know. I find that the other Day and Age and Million Town, I really love a lot. I find I keep going back to this one. And there's just something really special to my ears about this one, because it just that maybe just brings it a hair above the other two. So like I said, ask me next week, I might change my mind. But for date, Falling Satellites, their third album, gets the #1 spot. There you have it.
It's a great catalogue, Peter, isn't it? I mean, all 4 albums have so much to recommend. They really do. And they come in a fantastic box that you love.
Yeah, I love it.
I can give it a home if you want. I can give it a home.
I'm sure you would. Well, we'll see how it goes. If I see all these reissues and they look like they're, I can't pass them up, I may buy them. So we'll see. But the cool thing is this has all the rare stuff on it, which is kind of neat. You're not.
And the Others EP is worth having in physical format, because I've only got it on, I think it was iTunes and various things like that came out on. So I go back to that quite often too. It's a really good, strong EP as well. So yeah, lots to recommend here. Great band.
Yeah, I got to get into all the other stuff because I've just been spending my time with the main albums to get ready for the show. So I've got plenty of music to listen to. So I may just say, fuck it, and throw this in the car and I'll take up the whole front seat. My wife will be getting, what is this sitting on the seat? Like, oh, that's my Frost box set. Sorry. I'll have to build a shelf in my car for like box sets and all this crap. It's like,
I think we're missing a trick. We should be designing that. We should have the box set, glove box in the cars for that. You lift it down and all these box sets are just revealed. That would be fantastic. I think we're onto something here.
What's funny is when I have younger people who ride in my car, either like relatives or friends' kids or whatever like that, and they see like the CDs all over the place, and they look at me like, "What the hell are you still doing with that stuff?" And I got into a conversation not long ago, me and a buddy of mine who's the same age with someone younger. We were complaining about how you go to buy a new vehicle nowadays, and they don't come with CD players anymore. We're like, "It's got to have a CD player," and they're like, "What the hell you need a CD player for?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I need a CD player for? What do you think all this stuff is for, right? I mean, got to play it somewhere." I'm like, give me a break. Yes. Well, dinosaur. We are dinosaurs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If it's any help to you, yesterday, I actually had to take somebody and explain how a record works. Oh, God. Okay. And I did. The best way to do it, in my humble opinion, is to put the needle on the record and don't even turn the amp on. And just listen in, and you can still hear it. If that doesn't tell you how the record works, nothing does. Right. Exactly.
Put the needle on the record. Just do it. All right, everybody. So that's a wrap. So ranking the albums of Frost for fans, rank them as you like them, 1 through 4 in the comments below. If you have never listened to Frost before, please take our recommendations here. Go out and check out some of these albums. They're all on YouTube or various places where you can listen to your music, and then come back and let us know what you think. So, but stay tuned. Don't touch that dial, because we are coming right back at you. We're ranking the albums. We got 7 this time of Polish progressive rock / progressive metal veterans, Riverside. Another great catalog. So stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube
all the damn time.
All the damn time. For Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Like I said, don't touch that dial. We're coming right back. Take care. Bye-bye.